And some really dystopian stuff coming from the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, just the whole idea of the Department of Homeland Security is pretty dystopian, authoritarian, and disgusting and unnerving itself. But check this out. Homeland Security justifies invasion of Portland by claiming shields and gas masks are weapons. DSHS Acting Deputy Secretary Ken Cuccinelli, fascist, claimed that the defensive tools like shields and gas masks were evidence that protesters were making preparations for violence. Yes, they were making preparations for the violence that has been inflicted upon them day after day by these fascist stormtrooper agents of DSHS. Jesus Christ. So here's Cuccinelli. Here is a shield, a couple of gas masks from a rioter arrested in Portland, not a sign with the slogan that someone expressing their First Amendment rights might carry, but preparations for violence. Yes, violence that has been directed towards them by the state, day after day, exercising their constitutional rights. Ken, you fucking fascist. Peaceful protest? I don't think so, he wrote. Evidence that demonstrators were using inherently defensive items like shields and gas masks to protect themselves from tear gas, rubber bullets, and pepper balls appear not to convince many to drop their support of the movement. Quote, the steps you take to protect yourself from the violence I perpetrate against you are the evidence that you deserve the violence is rarely articulated quite so plainly, at least not in public, replied Angus Johnson of Hostas Community College, City University of New York. I mean, Jesus Christ, how topsy-turvy of a world and a country is the United States, where having to protect yourselves from the government with gas masks and shields means you're the ones committing the violence? I mean, Jesus Christ. DSHS justifies its invasion of Portland over the objection of city and state officials on the grounds it's protecting federal property, particularly the Mark O. Hatfield Federal Courthouse, which has become a venue of intense struggles. Simply put, we need to make sure it is not burned down as rioters have tried to do for weeks. That's our mission, it stated. Yet it is far from clear whether DSHS has a legal remit to do so. Its own website notes that its mission is, quote, striving to prevent future terrorist attacks against the U.S. and our allies, responding decisively to natural and man-made disasters, and advancing American prosperity and economic security long into the future. None of this which would be covered by protesters graffitiing federal property. The ACLU is suing the government and the DHS for their actions. And this is despite this, Cuccinelli has promised to expand the use of federal troops or police nationwide, including to a number of Democratic-run cities. This is a posture we intend to continue not just in Portland, but in any of the facilities that we're responsible for around the country. Again, just the juxtaposition of how fast the federal government is willing to respond to supposedly protect property, stupid fucking courthouse. While we're in a pandemic, we can't get Medicare, we can't get UBI, we can't get rent and mortgage cancellations, but plenty of money and resources to tear gas, shoot people with those little pepper spray balls, kidnap people off the streets, outfit these DSHS fascist stormtroopers with thousands of dollars worth of gear, put up fences, and yet none of that stuff that actually helps people, but plenty of money for the military-industrial complex and the security state to brutalize people both here and abroad. Again, we got money for war, we don't got money to feed the poor. United States in a nutshell. Fear over live ammo and violence against the press. The mayor of Portland, he's trash as well. Ken Wheeler, he got tear gas, but I mean the PPB, the Portland Police Bureau, has been tear gassing and brutalizing protesters in Portland day after day, night after night for months, and terrorizing, the communities of color there since, forever, unfortunately, and he's been silent about that, so I frankly don't care that he was tear gassed. According to the U.S. Freedom Tracker, Portland has seen 52 attacks on journalists, it's a war crime I believe, since the nationwide protests against racist police violence began in late May, Minneapolis being the only city recording more. Not counted among 52 is the case of Mint Press contributor Wyatt Reed. Late Wednesday night, federal agents shot him in the face with pepper balls, injuring his eye. Last night, he was also hit in the knee and the hand. For the record, I was sitting by myself, well away from anyone else, and nowhere near any of the more militant demonstrators who these specially trained federal agents shot me directly with chemical weapon projectile, he tweeted. That is the reason that these people, these protesters exercising their constitutional right to protest, to assemble, are having to use gas masks and shields and other protective gear. Cuccinelli, you fascist fucker. The current protest movement was sparked by the viral images showing the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Since then, they expanded to every state in the union to other nations. One recent Morning Consult poll found that 23% of police officers said they held very or somewhat favorable views of white supremacy, by far the highest proportion of over 100 identifiable groups the survey asked. President Trump has opted to confront the protests head-on rather than make concessions. If shields and gas masks are now considered weapons, it appears likely that more government escalation is on the cards for Portland. I mean, that's frankly not surprising. The police as an institution itself is a white supremacist institution, literally drawing its roots back to slave patrols. And it just upholds capitalism, protecting property over people, brutalizing in particular communities of color, other marginalized groups. But again, it's just more examples of how much of a shithole country the United States really is, unfortunately. And you gotta call a spade a spade. All power to the people. Peace. Much love.